stereo or joint stereo? We're clarifying a question about exporting stereo files in this edition of Stuart's Audacity Tips. This edition of SAT is not aimed at our VO readers who only export to mono. But you never know which of your VO friends might be dabbling in production work too, so share this around, if you would. I was recently involved in a discussion about joint stereo and whether it is a preferable option when exporting MP3s in Audacity. That discussion prompted a number of related questions, so I thought I'd talk about this topic a bit for benefit of anyone that might be exploring. First, what is joint stereo? In Audacity, it is an option that was available in the export audio dialog prior to version 3.4.0, in addition to the option for stereo. But what does it mean? The phrase joint stereo refers to any encoding method that allows similar audio that is found in more than one channel to be stored once and shared between the channels. This saves storage space in the encoded file compared with normal stereo, which stores a copy of the audio in each channel. But how that encoding is done varies from format to format, so an MP3 encoder will handle it differently from a FLAC encoder, for example. And different MP3 coders will handle it differently as well. If you're interested in a deeper discussion of joint stereo, an excellent treatment can be found at the Hydrogen Audio Knowledge Base. So why did Audacity remove this option? It seems as though it's a good option to have. While at first glance it seems like our options have been reduced, in reality they've been clarified. This is because of a somewhat flawed perception from days gone by that using joint stereo to encode MP3 necessarily resulted in degraded audio quality. So the option to choose plain stereo meant that you could opt for the supposedly higher quality of that approach. But modern MP3 encoders like LAME, which Audacity uses, don't degrade quality in the way that was feared back then. So, to avoid the confusion, Audacity removed the joint stereo option, automatically exporting MP3 in joint stereo. But what if I want to make sure I have true fidelity in my exported audio? In that case, I shouldn't be exporting to MP3. Always use a lossless format like WAV for storing a master copy of finished audio. Just out of curiosity, I thought I'd do a little comparison of various export methods in Audacity 2 using 2.4.2 and Audacity 3 using 3.7.4, just to see how they differ in terms of file size and content. I set up an Audacity project that contained two channels, a vocal narration track and a music track. Then I opened the project in Audacity 2.4.2 and exported it two ways, using stereo and using joint stereo. I then opened it in Audacity 3.7.4 and exported two ways, in stereo and in custom mapping. Custom mapping allows you to specify which track's data you want to go to each channel. When selected, it activates the Configure button, which opens a dialog allowing this mapping. I left the mapping at its default, first track to channel 1, left, and second track to channel 2, right. Now, if you're wondering, this is not something you would normally do. The custom mapping option is designed for projects that need to export to more than two channels, like Dolby 5.1 for example. I'm just using it here to explicitly define the channels to see if there's any difference in exported size. Then I went back to Audacity 2.4.2. I had previously saved the project in 2.4.2. You can't open an Audacity 3 project in Audacity 2. Deleted the music track, duplicated the voice track, and then exported in the same two ways as before, stereo and joint stereo. Finally, I did the same thing in Audacity 3.7.4, exporting in stereo and in custom mapping with the same simple mapping. Here's how the resulting files stacked up in terms of size. I've highlighted matching results to make a couple of points clear. First, when exporting the project that has different tracks, voice and music, three methods resulted in the same file size, highlighted in yellow. 1. Joint stereo in Audacity 2.4.2, 2. Stereo in Audacity 3.7.4, and 3. Custom mapping in Audacity 3.7.4. This makes sense and helps clarify the changes in Audacity 3.4 and later. Since Audacity always uses joint stereo when exporting to MP3 now, we see that both options, stereo, and custom mapping with default settings produce the same result as joint stereo in Audacity 2.4.2. Also, when exporting the project with same tracks, voice on both, using joint stereo in Audacity 2.4.2 produces the same results as using stereo in Audacity 3.7.4, since the later version always uses joint stereo for MP3. These are highlighted in orange. Finally, notice the large difference in size between 242 same stereo and 374 same stereo. This shows that while Audacity 2.4.2 saves two distinct copies of the same audio, that is, no joint stereo, when using the stereo option, Audacity 3.7.4 always uses joint stereo for MP3, so it only stores the identical audio once and assigns it to both tracks. I know this is rather esoteric material for many, but you know that I would rather you have the info when you need it, whenever that might be. Hope this helps. I'm Stuart.